Hey.
I'm SF Rogers.
And I am DL Golden.
And we're the authors Chaos, and today we're talking to the one and only...
Oh, is that me, Ryan McHargue?
Ryan McHargue.
There was no way it was going to go smooth,
no way.
no matter how we started.
I'm actually not the one and only. If you Google, there's another Ryan McHargue, and he's an author too, I guess.
Okay, so two and only Ryan.
Two and only McHargue.
McHargue, yeah.
Okay.
We try to make sure we're pronouncing your right. Names are extremely important. So if we say it wrong, do not hesitate to chastise us.
Yes.
So no worries.
So Ryan, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So I'm old, and I'm a longtime role player. Matter of fact, I started role playing when I was 11, and that's kind of being the beginning of pretty much everything creative in my life. A band, a writing career, let's see, art, drawing, all kinds of stuff I've done over the years. Not great at any of it, but I sure do enjoy doing it.
I'm sure you're phenomenal at it. We all tend to have that issue where we're like, yeah, but what I put out in the world is trash, but everybody else's stuff is so good. And I'm sure you're just being way too hard on yourself. For sure.
We'll see. We'll let future generations judge that.
So what genre, umbrella term, what genre do you tend to write?
So my current series that I'm writing is a cyberpunk dystopian, cyberpunk's always dystopian, but a dystopian romance, if you will.
Ooh.
It's kind of the whole thing is, who are you if your memories have been replaced? Are you who you used to be, or are you somebody else now? And the unraveling of those truths, and how that affects the three main players in the first book.
That is a really heady topic. So you're going
until you read the book.
What is identity when your memories are falsified? Am I getting that correct?
That's exactly it. Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's crazy.
That's very much Total Recall.
Right?
Very
Total.
Yes, very Total Recall.
Sadly, I didn't think about it until after I'd written the first book, and I'm like, oh yeah, I guess this kind of is a little ripped off, but it's not supposed to be.
Do not beat yourself up. I've had people go, your book sounds very Sword Art Online to me, and I'm like, don't say that to me. I didn't think about that. Don't say that to me, please.
The worst, right? And yet, for marketing purposes, it's really good to say, if you like, blah, you'll like this.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Very good.
But my book is completely without swearing in it, which is really rare nowadays.
Yes.
So I tried to make it so that young adult could pick it up too, and parents wouldn't be like, what? I mean, there's some fake black scenes in it, but they're not overly graphic or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As a person who does not swear, I literally never do. I still have swearing in my book because it's hard to. Don't call me on that. Don't do that. It is really hard to convey strong emotions without swearing.
Because shoot fire, just don't hit the same.
So I grew up, my very first book I ever read was The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler. And there is language in it, but not like you see today. It just isn't. And you look at older movies, things like that. They didn't use that kind of language, and they still got very strong emotional reactions out of people. So language is powerful. Unfortunately, I think us as a generation, for the past 50 years or so, I'm more than that, I guess now. Anyways, have relied very heavily on what we consider foul language. Well, now it's pretty commonplace, but to get that stark hit. Whereas if you just use normal language, you can elicit a lot of emotional response, in my personal opinion.
Yeah. Do you feel like you have had trouble at all conveying those emotions without the strong language?
I don't know that I never set out to use the language, use the foul language in that way. So I didn't really think about it as I was writing. I was thinking about the emotions because, when you're writing, you're telling, or you're not telling, you're showing rather. Don't tell, show, but you're showing, emotions and how things emotionally affect the characters,
Right.
more than anything, So there's so many other words that I found to be so much more powerful.
Yep.
So I use those.
Fair enough. I can really respect that.
I respect that so much because I curse like a sailor.
And he does. I get it. Okay. Nice.
Yeah, it's as a 5th grade teacher, it was a habit I just never picked it up. Our mother would have murdered me.
Me
Not
too.
sure how this one got away
still
with it,
did,
but she would have literally taken my head off. But
Trauma.
as a 5th grade teacher, it's not something
Makes
I
the
can
best
afford.
writers. Trauma.
Right? I can't afford to have it in my vocabulary. So it's like, it doesn't creep in too much in my books, but there are times when I'm like, this elicits this.
Okay,
language.
so I say I curse like a sailor.
She does.
When I'm mad, it's real bad.
True anymore though? Is there really sailor cursing anymore? Are they cursing worse than your standard?
These Sailor Sarah's met that are just like beep, 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 beep all the way down the
Just
road.
only one word and that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It does convey a great many different things. So I suppose you could cover a sentence with it as its own word.
And I guess for me, I could go, like, it's one of those things where I could go through and remove, like, I think I've got a couple of GD in there somewhere where they're frustrated with, like, an answer they got.
I don't consider GD as a strong slur. I may even have. I think I have damn in there and things like that.
Now my F's will probably stay because
that's your way.
all there is to
it. Too funny.
Yeah, you see what I mean by getting off track? We tend to just jump entirely.
You know what?
This is how you make friends.
Conversations come from getting on the side of the rails, not on the rails.
Right.
So, how long have you been writing?
Did we ask you that? No, you didn't. I think you did when we were talking prior to the actual show. But, honestly, it's probably been about 15, 16 years, somewhere in there. I started writing. Actually, a good friend of mine had been writing since we were teenagers. And I never thought about it because I wasn't really a reader. I have ADD, and it's really difficult to sit and read. So I didn't. And then, he started this writer's workshop with some other friends that kind of wrote. And I'm like, I kind of want to see what that's about. So I got involved, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to start reading because I really want to know, what's so great about it. And so that started, I want to say about 20 years ago. And, and that kind of started, but I didn't really start writing until about probably 15 years ago. And then really seriously wrote my very first novel, about 2 years ago, actually, just at the beginning of COVID, kind of.
We've talked to several authors who got started around the end of the pandemic, or like 2021, end of 2020, first of 2021. I know Daniel started writing his book once they kind of closed the school down and stuff. And then like our friend JC Bryce wrote hers in 2020. So did the pandemic kind of open you up to be able to write a little more seriously?
Yeah, so as a ADHD person, I'm very very extroverted, I guess you'd say, or it used to be. I'm not as much as I was at one time, but and then when the pandemic hit, there really was no hanging out with anybody, and we had moved away from where I grew up, where all my close friends were at the time, and it just. I just got this spark. I started watching these YouTubers, specifically Chris Fox, who's an author and has an author website, and he writes how-tos and things. And I started just kind of getting inspired. I'm like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to sit down and write a book. And so I did. I did it in 30 days. It was horrible, but I didn't know that yet. I just didn't know much, And so I just did it. And that just kind of, I don't know, it started me down the path.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
In a different way than I'd ever written before.
I think it's so interesting that so many people are resonating with that. It's like the pandemic hit, and then all of a sudden people's lives kind of grinded to a halt with this, with all of the minutia of the day-to-day stuff that they had to do. All of a sudden, I found myself sitting at home. I'd do a lesson with my students for a few hours. They'd get all their work done, and that was it. It was finished. And so I'd have these extra hours where I would have nothing else to do. And so I began to sit down, and I had this idea for a story for a long time, and I began to sit down and just work on it. And eventually I was like, I'm going to turn this into a book. I think this could be published. And come to find out, my sister-in-law was writing at the time, and my half-sister was writing, and Sarah's like, I want to write. And so now there are 4 of us, 3 years later, that are trying to put books out in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy how much the artistic outlet has exploded for certain people, because they all of a sudden had time and realized life's short.
Yeah.
we're going to do this. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I think prior to the pandemic, we were all just living our lives in the standard day-to-day, go to work, come home, watch TV, and then go to bed type routine.
Right.
And pandemic gave us a little different time, and there wasn't really anything new coming out because there was not the ability to film. And so I think people started looking at what they could do different in their life to enrich their lives. I think is what happened.
Yeah. And as tragic as the pandemic was for
sure.
so many, I think that there are positives that we can draw from it. And I think that creativity and that explosion of art in general from just normal everyday people is a part of that positive outlook.
Oh, for sure.
I agree.
So you are self-published, correct?
Yes, I'm not traditional.
Yeah. So why did you decide to go self-published instead of traditional? Was traditional ever a thought?
Traditional was a thought. And I'm not against doing traditional publishing, but I have the aforementioned ADHD. So waiting for a traditional publishing deal is not going to happen very easily.
Right.
So, and Amazon made it so easy several years back, and now it's so simple to publish. I mean, there's so much crap out there, but why not join it?
Right. Well, you said made it easy. I've been writing for a really long time. I actually have a novel that will probably never see the light of day. And when our sister-in-law found out, she was like, wait, you write? And I was like, yeah. She goes, I published a book. And I was like, how did you do that? Because I'm under the impression that it's this long process where I have to send the thing out to 157 people and get 158 rejections. So,
that's true.
And she's like, no, you just get it uploaded to KDP and you're good. And I was like, wait, I'm going to start a story. And then Daniel was like, hey, Sarah, I'm writing a book. And I was like, hey, everybody, Daniel's writing a book. But it was, I guess it was eye-opening for me to see how easy it was to now the editing process gets a little thick, right? But how easy once you get through those first drafting stages to get your heart out there and get it in people's hands. So
yeah, definitely. It's I mean, it's a shocking amount of work, but the process is easier because we're not the first ones to do it. We're not relying on some publishing house to do it. You can do all the steps yourself. You can find your own editor. In fact, probably the hardest part when you're starting off is trying to find beta readers that aren't friends and family. Because you want to get as much honest feedback as you can from people.
That's one of our things. It's you can have your friends and family read it, but if if they're not willing to be hypercritical with you, if they're not willing to be really honest about how good or bad it is, you're not going to become better or grow. So we
How do you
definitely
improve
on that one.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
but the biggest thing I'd say is don't worry too much. Just get the editing as clean as you can. Put it out there. Get yourself out there, because after you write your first one and you go through the process, the second one becomes so much easier.
Oh, for sure.
And I'm assuming that's true about the third one. I haven't written the third one yet, but
hey, you're ahead of me. I'm in the middle of my second one, but I figure it has been easier for me to write the second one. I agree. It's like, okay, I can go back and fix these mistakes later. I don't need to edit as I go. I can go back, fix the mistakes later after I get A to B. I can finish it then. So I agree.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us about your current release. Like, what's your current, I say current release, either the current book you have out or the whip you're working on. We don't mind. We understand that there are things going on all over.
Oh my God, there's been so much going on. Yes. So the first one is out. It's available. As a matter of fact, I just did my very first local comic convention. Sold out. It was great.
Yay!
Yeah, I had a giveaway and had more trouble trying to get people to sign up for the giveaway than buy the book, which was funny.
That's never a bad thing if they want to support you.
Yeah, well, it kind of worked out because that city had done, one of their papers had done an article on my book. So it had gone out the week before the comic convention, so it all worked out really well. I was like, oh yeah, I saw this and I want to get it, or whatever. So it worked out really well. But the book has done a lot better than I thought it was going to do. You assume nobody's going to buy your book because nobody knows who the heck you are except for maybe your mom, type thing. And it did a lot better than that. I had a lot of acquaintances and friends that I'd had, so I started with that as just an email list because I didn't have anybody else. But that expanded, and I'm not making enough money to support myself or anything, not even close. But that's okay. But the book has done a lot better than I ever thought it would do. They say the first book puts you in debt, the second book can equalize that, and the third book you might make money. So that's kind of what I'm hoping of.
That seems to be a trend with a lot of people. A lot of us indie authors, I feel like, put the book out and we're like, if it gets bought, if it doesn't get bought, it doesn't matter. We want people to read our story and enjoy it. Whether they get that free through Kindle Unlimited or whether they get that from us as a beta copy, whatever. I think that a lot of us are like, we just want it out there in the world to read. Do you feel like that's how you approach the initial release?
Yeah, that's actually how I'm approaching this whole thing. I'm really not concerned about this taking over and being, how I make my living or anything, because I've been in IT for 25 plus years now. This is kind of what I do for a living. The writing is the creative outlet. It's cathartic. I started writing this book because of past traumas. I wanted to kind of, I wanted a creative way to express my feelings about things that I experienced in my life. And so even though it doesn't really follow anything that really happened, it allowed me to put emotions into characters. I'm not the most emotional guy, but in writing, I'm a lot more expressive in that way.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. Catharsis, I think, is the word to describe what writing is for most of us indie authors.
Oh, sure.
It's one of those things that you tend to daydream these things, and then you continue to daydream about them and continue, and you're like, okay, this has to go somewhere because it can't stay here. It's consuming every thought that I have. Right. So I definitely agree that it's very cathartic, and Sarah has said that you pour so much of yourself into your characters. No matter how you do it, your experiences shape what you write. And I think that the more honest you are, the more passion you pour into it, and the more honesty you pour into it, the more receptive people tend to be towards your characters and book.
And your book in general. Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah, I think that actually some of the most, other than the cover, everybody seems to love the cover, which is exciting to me. But the biggest compliments I've gotten mostly is about the characters, which is funny because I've gotten two sides to that. Some people love certain characters over the other characters, and are like, that character is less developed. It feels very flat, and these characters are really deep. And then I get the flop of this, the exact opposite. So that tells me that people like the characters, that the characters have some connection to them, that they're able to connect. What's that?
I said for sure.
Oh, thought you said first period. I'm like, what? I'm not back in school, am I? Is this a dream?
So do you have a picture of your cover? Like, do you have your book with you so we can see your cover?
Mind reading.
I don't have my book down here, but I do have the poster thing I can show.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh wow.
Absolutely incredible. And so did you have a cover artist that you just want to shamelessly plug right now? Do you have a cover artist for it?
I found them on Fiverr, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of money. I didn't spend very much on the actual art. And it's they did a really good job. I was very shocked when I got this back, because I'd gone through a couple different iterations. I'd paid about twice as much already and it didn't turn out very good. Couldn't get a hold of the artist. And so I paid again, thought, well, at least I've got some kind of protection through this, this site. And it worked out pretty good. And they're going to do the second cover and the third cover. I'm just glad that everything's going to work out.
Nice.
Because finding good cover art is hard. And I have to say that the art is getting more and more intense on books nowadays.
Yeah.
Although there's been a rash of people that have been doing a little bit more of their own drawings that are a little bit more cartoonish. And I'm not as a huge fan of that feel for a novel, but
for sure.
But
I agree. When I talk to my cover artist, we all of us tend to share a cover artist. We have Perky Visuals. We will shameless plug him.
Yes.
We have Perky Visuals out of the UK that did my sister-in-law's cover, and then he did my cover, and he's
done 3
C Brits. And when we talk about intense covers,
nice.
I mean, he does a really good job. And one question he always asks is, what covers of books do you absolutely hate?
Yep.
And I love that question, because there are so many I go to the store and I'm like, I would not buy that based on the cover that I'm seeing there.
Isn't that sad? We really do judge a book by its cover.
How many times we get that answer?
Like we say that all the time. Like, don't judge a book by its cover. But like, if you walk up to the shelves and every book had a brown cover on it, like,
you're gonna judge it. Yeah.
For my ADHD brain, I'm like, I don't want anything to do with these books.
This does not spark joy.
This does not spark joy.
Yes. We have to fold the clothes correctly.
Yes. So we will always stand by, one of the most important things you need to do is get a good cover made. If you're good at making covers, you can make your cover. But if you are not comfortable doing that, find someone who can, because there are price ranges varying from $100 to well over $1,000.
Yeah.
But you can get a really good thing made, and that's something that
for sure.
I think we have heard a lot from people.
Yeah, definitely.
So, speaking of advice, what is a piece of advice that you would say as an author you stand by?
Do it. I would just write. I mean, the thing, your inner editor, your self-critic, all of those things, that inner voice that just destroys everything you try to do, is going to try to stop you no matter what. And you just have to accept that that's what's going to happen. But until you write it, you don't know, and you just need to put it out there. And if you're a bad writer, you're a bad writer. That's okay. Everybody's a bad writer at some point in their life, so put it down in paper and give yourself the freedom to be bad. You'll get better.
Yeah, I love that advice, because essentially it's don't be afraid to suck, and you've got to be terrible at something before you get better at something.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that writing is absolutely no different.
Right.
I agree.
It's
I totally
such
agree.
a process.
So tell me about Mick, because I'm interested. I want to know about Mick.
You want to know about Mick?
I want to know about Mick.
So did you ever read Neuromancer?
I have not.
I know it. I've never read it.
Okay, so the lead character in that is kind of a jerk. His name is Case, but when I thought about writing this character, I first started off with the old cliche, the tough guy, the blah blah blah, this that, whatever. But I figured out right away that having the vulnerabilities of this character out there are so important, that you need to feel when you're reading this guy that he's not just a badass or whatever, that he is struggling through the whole thing, whether it's with relationships, trying to figure out who he is. As he's doing things, he's finding his body's doing things that he's not telling it to do. He's kind of along for the ride and experiencing the whole thing in fear, frustration, and terror. and then he's got this love, and I don't want to give a ton away because there's so much that goes on, but his whole thing is he's finding out that everything he knew is not true. Everything. And he has nobody to turn to until he finally ends up getting somebody to turn to that he doesn't even know that he can trust.
Oh my gosh. It sounds so good.
It does. It's going on the TBR.
You're going on our TBR on our Goodreads. So they can find you on Amazon and stuff, right?
Yeah. So I'm on Amazon, Kindle Unlimited as well. So if you have a Kindle Unlimited, you don't have to pay for buying the book. You can just go ahead and read it.
Okay.
It's very action-packed, the first book. The second book is a little bit less action-packed. Actually, there's not a fight scene until near the last quarter of the book. But it's very very fast read. So you'll get through it pretty quick. I tend to write under 70,000 words because I like a fast pace. I like to move through a book.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with
that ADHD brain. My brain. I keep getting into chapters in my book, and I'm like, all right, we need to pick up the pace because I am even losing myself here.
Oh no, don't do that.
And I'm
but you know what? Don't put it down. What are you saying?
I'm writing a high fantasy where I'm like, I'm at 97,000 words, and I don't just think I described the magic good enough yet. Oh.
That gets complicated. High fantasy, I got to give it to you. Sci-fi, you can play off of, like I have this device called a PDC, which is a cell phone. Let's be honest. It's really what it is. But in high fantasy, that's not really the case. You're dealing with very foreign concepts, and it's very difficult to get people to buy into these concepts. So I give it to you. That's hard.
So we're rounding out here at the last 2 minutes or so. Where can people find you on socials and stuff if they want to follow you? Where can they find you?
So what is my? I can't even remember.
You're as bad as
yesterday they were like, Daniel, what's your Discord name? And he was like, Sarah knows it because I don't. I was like, yeah, I have his Discord handle. Hold on a second.
Yeah, maybe it's my age. I don't know, but I use them. I do post things. I have Ryan McHargue on for my Facebook, and because I have my my own podcast that I do once in a while, Geezers of the Game. So I have GOT G, yeah, show for the Twitter or whatever it's called now. And those are the two that I typically use. But you can find all those links on my website, ryanamchargue.com.
Okay, so
as
like
well
no
as
no
on
TikTok
Amazon.
thing though, because if you're on
I do have
TikTok,
TikTok, and I don't know what it is.
I
But
have
I
it
do
right here. It's on the email you sent us. It's
Oh,
Ryan
good.
McHargue.
hey, Sarah's
Oh,
got
this
you.
Ryan McHargue.
She can,
Okay.
she can be the brain for both you and me now. It's
That's
great.
okay. I need all the brain. Yeah.
Well, you definitely made 2 new friends in us,
Yeah,
little
absolutely.
Midwest kids. So
It was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you guys taking time to talk to me and focus on the book.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking to us. We've had such a good time talking to authors, and without people like you, we wouldn't be doing this.
yeah, no, we wouldn't.
And it's just been absolutely amazing. So we are going to sign off here. I am D.L. Golden. You can find my Origins on Amazon if you're looking for it.
I'm SF Rogers. I don't have a book yet, but it's coming. I promise. I'm working real hard on it. You will see Execration of Autumn. I promise. You guys will probably get the first view of my cover when I finally get it. So,
Ryan, thank you so much for coming on with us, man.
yeah, we appreciate it.
Thank you so much.